Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here today. Just a quick question. I know that in going through the reading materials here on the issue of the day here, I was struck by the for-profit and the not-for-profit incubators. Can you give me a little insight as to the benefits, the pluses, minuses, of each one of those?
If you don't mind, may
I assumed Mr. Monk was going to answer that question as the association man.
There was a time during the late 90s, during the dot-com period, when there was a large growth in for-profit incubators. I think at one point they became as great as maybe 25 or so % of the number of incubators currently operations in the States. I think you might want to think about it from the entrepreneur's perspective. An entrepreneur doesn't have access to deep pockets for them to be making great investments in education, though they would like to as much as they can afford dynamic programs. So almost by definition, much of the incubation process is to try and make the cost of residency and participation as practical as possible. So what might happen is you might have a relationship with a local sponsor that may have provided at discount or for free a building that's available for that co-location, that space that entrepreneurs can share. But to fund programs, they might look to charge market rates for the space, and those rates are going to, in large part, pay for the services that are offered. We don't want to give this information, we don't want to give this support away for free to the entrepreneurs. They need to be, they need to have the skin in the game. But I think that we're seeing that there's probably only so far for-profit incubators can go before they run into long-term problems, because the incubation process tends to be longer, 2 years, 3 years, in some instances 5 years. That's a lot of time to carry support to an incubatee client.
Mr. Linder, just very quickly, would you define your business as an incubator or more of an investor into existing businesses that you see have already gone past this incubation stage?
Yes, we're clearly an investor.
Okay.
That usually sees deals that in many cases have been through incubators and have been through a friends and family fundraise. They look a little more like a company before we see them.
I got another quick question for you. How long do you maintain an interest in the business forever, or do you get rid of it after a certain period of time, or is there a structured agreement so that you will stay until they get a certain amount of revenues or a certain amount of assets, or is it how do you do that?
Well, usually 3 or 4 seconds after we cut the check, we ask them what the exit strategy is. I hope that gives a partial answer. I think on the average, if it's a good deal, we're in the deal 5, 6 years before either a venture capital round for larger dollars comes about and takes us out, or there's an acquisition.
Okay, your intention, though, is not to own the business forever or be a part of it forever. Your intention is to get them off the ground and be able to get in and get out and get a return on investments.
100%.
Okay.
If I could can I use a moment to comment
Sure.
or follow up a question? 2 of the angel investors in my fund in Philadelphia have actually started what's called an accelerator, and I hope nobody asks me the difference between an incubator and an accelerator. I'll let the faculty members do that. But in any case, to respond to the earlier question about how long in an incubator, this group has decided that the entrepreneur will have a 4-month window with a lot of resources applied, kind of high-intense resources. And at the end of the 4 months, the entrepreneur either has an opportunity to present to angel investment or they're out. So, and we'll see how that experiment works, but I wanted to respond to the other side of the coin.
Okay, Dr. Lewis, did you have a comment a minute ago on?
In terms of the differences between the public or the for-profit incubators is that the goals are really different. A for-profit incubator really is an interest in exercising the business for their own profit, where a not-for-profit incubator is interested in growing a local economy. And so from the point of view of a public sector investment in terms of what it means for local jobs, if you acquire a company through venture firms you might sell and license that technology to Japan or South Korea, and Americans might never enjoy the benefit of that. Okay. And their timeline for success is much shorter. And this is what I believe has led to the failure of so many of the for-profits that grew up in the late 90s, is that they were anticipating profits in 6 to 18 months. It takes 3 years to incubate a firm on average, and so they were unreasonable in their expectations.
So you're telling me that there are very, very few for-profits left out there right now?
Roughly about 10%,
10%,
is
okay.
out there at this point.
Okay, very good. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Madam Chairman.